It started with the automated phone system for the Salt Lake City Public Library. I know how that sounds. A library. In Utah. Not exactly the stuff of nightmares, but that's the thing, isn't it? The worst horrors are always hiding in the most mundane places, wrapped in the boring beige paper of everyday life. You don't see the rot until you're already deep inside it. My name's Ben. This was about 2 years ago. I was living in a cramped one-bedroom apartment on South Temple Street, trying to finish my master's thesis on late 20th century urban planning, which is about as exciting as it sounds. My girlfriend, Maya, was living with me. She was an artist, a painter, and her presence in my life was a splash of violent, beautiful color against the gray grid of my academic routine. God, Maya. Just thinking about her now sends a jolt through me, a confusing mix of longing and a deeper, colder fear. She was arresting. Not just pretty. It was an assault on the senses. She had this long, wild mane of black hair that she'd tie up in a messy knot when she was working, leaving the elegant, flawless line of her neck exposed. Her eyes were a dark, liquid brown, and when she smiled at me, really smiled, it was like a physical punch to the chest. I'd get lost in the shape of her lips, the way they glistened if she'd just taken a sip of wine. She had this habit of biting her lower lip when she was concentrating, and I'd have to look away, my thoughts spiraling somewhere completely inappropriate for the public library. She was curvy in a way that made cheap cotton sundresses look like high fashion. I remember one afternoon just before all this started, she was standing on a step stool trying to reach a box on the top shelf of our closet. She was wearing these tiny denim shorts and a thin, worn-out t-shirt. The stretch of the fabric across her back, the way the shorts hugged the incredible swell of her hips, the faint tremble in her calf muscles as she balanced on her toes. I had to stop myself from just walking over and putting my hands on her waist, pulling her down right there. It was a constant low-grade hum of distraction. A good one, mostly, until it got tangled up with everything else. The thesis was my entire world at that point, a black hole sucking all my time and energy. I was researching the architectural history of the city's public spaces, and I needed a specific, obscure journal article that I was sure the main library downtown had. Their online catalog said it was available, but listed its location as closed stacks retrieval required, which meant I had to call. So I did. The number rang and a pleasant, digitally smooth female voice answered. "Thank you for calling the Salt Lake City Public Library. Your call is very important to us. Please listen carefully as our menu options have changed." I sighed, phone pressed to my ear, already drumming my fingers on my desk. I went through the menu, pressing 3-4 research and reference, then 2-4 periodical inquiries. I was fully expecting to be put on hold, and I was. But the hold music wasn't the usual bland, instrumental music. It was different. There was a soft, rhythmic static hiss, like an old tape recorder playing, and underneath it, a faint, high-pitched voice. A child's voice. It was so muffled and distant I could barely make it out. It sounded like a one-sided phone conversation. And the big one, with the red door, the tiny voice lisped. There was a pause as if listening. "No, it's my castle, Billy. Can't come in. He's yucky." A cold, inexplicable trickle of unease went down my spine. It was just so bizarre. Why would a library have a recording of a child's phone call as their hold message? Maybe it was some kind of local art project, a sound collage or something. Salt Lake has a weird, quiet art scene. I shook it off. After a minute, a real person, a woman with a tired but friendly voice, picked up. I asked about the journal. She put me on a brief hold again to check the physical inventory. The sound came back, the same tape hiss, the same child's voice, a little clearer this time. "Hello? Is anyone there? I can hear you breathing." I felt a prickle on the back of my neck. The line clicked. "Sir? I'm sorry, that item is actually currently in for binding. It should be back on the floor in 7 to 10 business days." I thanked her and hung up, feeling oddly unsettled. I stood up and walked into the living room, where Maya was stretching a fresh canvas. She was on her knees, leaning forward, and her tank top had ridden up, exposing a strip of smooth tan skin above the waistband of her leggings. The sight of it, the vulnerable curve of her lower back, usually would have pulled me right out of any funk, but that tiny voice was stuck in my head. "Everything okay?" she asked, looking over her shoulder, her eyes narrowed with concern. You look like you just saw a ghost. Nah, I said, forcing a smile. Just library bureaucracy, they put you on hold with the weirdest music. She laughed, a warm, rich sound. What, like Gregorian chants? Worse. Sounded like a kid's phone call from the 80s. Huh. Probably some intern's idea of a joke. She went back to her work, and I just stood there for a moment, watching the powerful, graceful movement of her shoulders that I wanted to go over and kneel behind her, press my face into that exposed strip of skin, forget about the strange phone call. But the feeling, that little seed of disquiet, remained. A week later, I called again. The journal was still out, back on hold. This time the child's voice was sharper, less muffled, that I recognized it. The realization hit me like a bucket of ice water that it was my voice. Not just the child's voice. My voice from when I was maybe 5 or 6 years old, that I knew it with a terrifying primal certainty. The slight lisp I'd had before braces, the specific upward cadence at the end of my sentences. That because the man in the yard said so, my tiny voice was saying that it was cheerful, matter-of-fact, that a long pause filled with tape hiss. Then my young voice again, dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. He told me not to tell, that it's a secret game, that he's my friend. The line clicked as the librarian came back on. I didn't hear a word she said. My hand was trembling so badly I almost dropped the phone. I was covered in a cold sweat. Ben? Hello? The librarian's voice sounded far away. Yeah, thanks. I stammered and ended the call. I sat at my desk, my heart hammering against my ribs. It was impossible, a coincidence, a weird auditory trick of the mind. But I knew that was me, and I had no memory of that conversation. None. The man in the yard? We'd had a small, fenced-in backyard in the house I grew up in Ogden. I remembered a dog. I remembered a swing set. I did not remember a man. You're white as a sheet. Maya said that she'd come into the office doorway, wiping her hands on a rag stained with phthalo blue. She was wearing my old college sweatshirt, which was huge on her, but it couldn't hide the way her hips flared beneath the soft fabric. The concern on her face was so genuine, so beautiful, it almost broke me. I couldn't tell her that it sounded insane. Thesis stress, I mumbled, rubbing my eyes. Just hitting a wall. She came over and put a hand on my shoulder, her thumb rubbing small circles on my neck. Her touch was electric, but it couldn't burn away the chill inside me. Take a break. Come keep me company. I'm mixing colors. It's very therapeutic. You can stare at my ass while I bend over the palette. It'll be good for you. She said it with a wink, trying to lighten the mood, and normally it would have worked. The image alone would have been enough to short-circuit my brain. But right then the offer felt grotesque. My childhood voice was whispering about a secret man in my yard, and my girlfriend was offering her body as a distraction. The two realities crashed into each other, and I felt nauseous. Maybe later, I said, my voice hoarse. She looked a little hurt, but she kissed the top of my head and left me alone with the echo of a memory I never made. The next day, I became obsessed. I called the library 5 times in a row, hanging up each time I was put on hold, just to hear the recording. It was always the same soft hiss, but the clips of the conversation were different each time. Fragments of a life I didn't recall. That he hides in the place where the stairs don't go. That mommy can't see him. Only I can. That his smile is too big for his face. Each snippet was a fresh jolt of terror. I started writing them down in a notebook, as if by transcribing them I could somehow decode their meaning, prove they were a hoax. But the voice was undeniably mine. I even dug out an old home video from a birthday party, cringing as I listened to my 7-year-old self screech with excitement over a new bike. The cadence, the lisp, it was a perfect match. Paranoia began to set its hooks in me. I started looking over my shoulder on the street. The sound of a child laughing would make me freeze. I was sleeping poorly, and when I did sleep, I dreamed of our old backyard, of a tall, thin shadow standing by the fence that seemed to absorb the light around it. I could never see its face. Maya noticed, of course, the distance, the jumpiness. I'd be watching her move around the kitchen, my eyes tracing the shape of her thighs beneath her soft sleep shorts, feeling a dull throb of desire that was immediately followed by a wave of guilt and anxiety. One night, we were in bed and I was kissing her neck, my hands sliding under her t-shirt over the warm, incredible softness of her stomach, when my phone, charging on the nightstand, emitted a burst of static from a misplaced notification. I flinched away from her as if I'd been burned. "Jesus, Ben," she said, pulling away. She sat up, the sheet pooling around her waist, the street light from the window cut across her body, illuminating the gentle slope of her breasts under her thin tank top. It was a sight that usually left me breathless. Now, it just felt like an accusation. "What is going on with you? You've been a ghost for 2 weeks, you jump at every sound, you barely touch me." I couldn't meet her eyes. "I'm sorry that it's the thesis that's messing with my head." "This is more than thesis stress," she said, her voice soft but firm. "Talk to me." I almost did that. I opened my mouth to tell her about the phone calls, the voice, the man in the yard, but the words wouldn't come. They sounded ludicrous, the ramblings of someone losing his grip. I didn't want her to look at me like I was crazy. I couldn't stand the thought of that beautiful, concerned face twisting into pity or fear. So I lied. "It's nothing. I'm just tired. I'm sorry." I reached for her, but she subtly shifted away. "Get some sleep, Ben," she said, and turned over, giving me her back. I lay there for hours, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe. I was trapped between the terrifying mystery of my past and the painful reality of potentially losing the best thing in my present. The two fears began to weave together until I couldn't tell them apart. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. I decided I had to go to the library in person. I had to talk to someone, see if there was a logical explanation. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe their phone system was picking up a cross signal from a baby monitor or something. There had to be a reason. The Salt Lake City Public Library is a stunning piece of modern architecture, all sweeping curves and vast, light-filled atriums. That day, it felt like a mausoleum. The usual quiet was oppressive, the sound of my own footsteps on the polished concrete floor echoing way too loudly. I felt like everyone was looking at me. I went to the main information desk. The woman behind it was in her 50s, with kind eyes and a name tag that read Janice. "Hi," I said, my voice coming out as a croak. I cleared my throat. "I've been calling about a journal? But I also had a question about your hold system." "Oh," Janice said, smiling. "What about it?" "The music, when you put people on hold. It's unusual." Her smile didn't falter, but it became a little fixed. "Oh, that. Yes, it's a little different, isn't it? It sounds like old phone calls. Children's phone calls." "Does it?" she said, her tone light and dismissive. "I suppose I've never really paid much attention. It's just hold music." She was being polite, but I could see the subtle shift in her posture. A slight withdrawal. I was making her uncomfortable. "It's just, I think one of them might be me," I blurted out. I instantly regretted it. Janice's smile vanished. She looked at me not with fear but with a deep, professional pity. "The kind you give to someone who is very, very unwell." "Sir," she said gently, "our hold system uses a standard digital music service. It's just instrumental arrangements of popular songs. Perhaps you're mishearing it." "No, I'm not mishearing it," I said, my voice rising. A few people at nearby computer terminals looked over. I forced myself to lower it. "It's a tape recording. There's static. A child's voice. It's my voice." She took a small, almost imperceptible step back. "I'm sorry, sir. There must be some kind of mistake. Or perhaps a problem with your phone line?" She was clearly trying to end the conversation. "Was there anything else I could help you with? The journal, perhaps?" Defeated, humiliated, I just shook my head and walked away. My face was burning. I felt unmoored, crazy. I needed to get out of there. I headed for the main staircase, a grand, spiraling structure that wound through the center of the building. That's when I saw him. He was standing on the landing 1 flight below me, looking up. Not at anything in particular. Just up, into the empty air of the atrium. He was tall and painfully thin, dressed in a dark, ill-fitting suit that looked decades out of date. His skin was pale, almost waxy. His hair was a nondescript brown, neatly combed. There was nothing outwardly monstrous about him. But his presence was wrong. It was like a drop of ink in clear water, a stain on reality itself. And he was looking right at me. No, not at me, through me. His eyes were the worst part. They were too wide, too still. They didn't seem to blink. They held no expression, no curiosity, no life, just a flat, dead observation. A cold dread, far worse than anything I'd felt from the phone calls, seized me. My breath hitched that I couldn't move. We stood there, frozen in that vast silent space, him looking up, me looking down. His smile is too big for his face, star. The words from the recording echoed in my skull. His mouth was a simple, neutral line. But in my mind's eye, I saw it stretch, impossibly wide, splitting his pale face in two. I broke. I turned and practically ran back the way I came, taking the elevator down to the ground floor, my heart trying to beat its way out of my chest. I didn't look back. I burst out onto the street, the bright Utah sun feeling like an interrogation light. I spent the rest of the day in a fog of terror. I couldn't work. I couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those flat, dead eyes. I called the library again from my cell phone, my hands shaking. The hold recording came on. It was different. The tape hiss was louder, more aggressive. My child voice wasn't cheerful or conspiratorial. It was terrified, whispering through tears. He's here. He's in the hall. I don't like the game anymore. Make him go away, please? A sob. Then the sound of a door creaking slowly open. The line went dead silent for a full 10 seconds before the librarian picked up. I threw my phone across the room. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor. Maya was out getting groceries. I was alone. And I knew with a certainty that was soul-crushing, that I wasn't alone at all. The man from the library, the man from my yard, they were the same, and he knew I remembered. Or that I was starting to remember. When Maya got home, I was a wreck. I'd pulled all the blinds shut. I was sitting on the couch in the dark, knees pulled to my chest. Ben, she called out, her voice laced with alarm as she fumbled for the light switch. The room flooded with light. She saw me and her grocery bags dropped to the floor with a thud. Oh my God, what happened?